So The Handmaid's Tale, Season 3, Episode 5, Unknown Caller, opens up in classic Handmaid's Tale fashion with June having a little narration, reflecting on things, and her now knowing her baby is free and safe with her husband, Luke. She contemplates it being a miracle, but then she says to herself, it's not a miracle. I did this. And she praises the other handmaids that they could resent her for this, but they offer her grace. And this line's important because it sets up for later on. We learn that Off Matthew kind of resents June a bit at the end here, saying that everyone's so focused on Nichole up in Canada, her child, that she doesn't even think it's worth telling her commander she's about to have her third child because everyone's head is somewhere else. So you see June also talks about absence makes the heart grow fonder, talking about Luke and that's a part of her. But that woman who married Luke and had Hannah isn't the same anymore. It's a part of her, but there's a much different part. And this whole theme about June will come up later on in her narration towards the end and her tape recording to Luke. And this episode did really well was get important information to Luke and also in a sad, tragic, happy way, kind of close up their marriage in a bit, in reality at least, and that there's always going to be love there, but they have to be realistic now, as she has, where she had love with someone else and Nick, and that she gives Luke the pass and frees him of any guilt that he needs to find happiness too, and in some ways has to move on as she has. So we see now that Waterford is trying to make Serena happy now and lets her into this meeting of higher up men. And what does she do? She wants intel on Luke, a man who has her child. Now, what I took this as was her asking if he was a man of God. I think she wanted to hear really bad things about Luke as a justification for her to just go over there and save her baby. She's almost looking for a reason to undo what she's done. And you see here, Commander Waterford says to her, I thought this is what you wanted, our baby being safe in Canada. Now, hearing this line come out of Commander Waterford's mouth, I will say that Commander Waterford is another character who has had some inconsistencies. It feels like he was prescribed Xanax in between season 2 and 3, and he's much more calm and much more of a rational thinker, which is very unlike Commander Waterford. He snapped at almost everything and was a tyrant in the past. Yes, he's had forgiveness in him towards June, but he's always irrational. And this season, he's kind of just there and calm. Now, I get characters change, they grow, they become different, but you gotta give us a little more in depth to his character of why he's so different all of a sudden. Why someone had brought up in a comment in my last video that we saw at the end of season 2, Nick's pointing a gun and holding him at gunpoint in his own house, and Commander Waterford, we never see address that, and Nick gets a promotion out of it. And it happens in this episode when June makes this phone call. You hear, everyone in the room hears online that Luke's like, I don't want him being there. He doesn't even question this. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say, no, I want to see my kid too. He just sits there quietly. And I get he's trying to make Serena happy, but Jesus, like, it's a complete flip. And really, this whole storyline with Serena exposes how obviously selfish of a person she is, and as a mother, because she knows deep down Nichole is safer in Canada, but her selfish desire is wanting to be with her daughter and not do what's best for her. And she just has to somehow lie to herself that it is the right thing to do because she wants to see her that bad. So another important thing is when you see the Waterfords go see June, Serena Joy is talking to June and says, I know I can't be with her. I just want to be something to her. And June's first instincts were right here where she says, that's not gonna help you seeing Nichole. Problem is Serena, I believe, at this point in the episode, was not planning to lie to June and not turn her back on her and just visit Nichole. Now, was there a seed in the back of her head that she was gonna cave in and want to just be with Nichole forever and take her back? Yes. And it's like a drug addict in a way where Serena's drug is actually this baby and wanting this motherhood. And as June's instincts told her, Serena, even just touching this child, seeing her, is gonna just trigger it. It's like an alcoholic getting a little sip of beer and it's a relapse in a way. That was the worst thing she could have done. And it made her crazy Serena again. So when we go to this important phone call to ask Luke to meet up with the Waterfords, you see that there's a little important line thrown in here where Luke's talking just to the person who works at this grocery store and says, how do people pay for this? This food will barely last a week. So to me, that was important because that is something the Waterfords, now that we know, are going to go against Luke and try to get their kid back, they can use against him. That he doesn't have sufficient funds to even be a father and give this kid enough food. It's something he can just exaggerate. So June gets 2 minutes on the clock here to talk to Luke, and again, I always give credit when it's due, and I've always been hard on the actor of Luke in this show, but he does fantastic in this whole episode, and right here, this was his best acting we've seen yet when he gets this phone call, so props to him. Praise be. I'm happy June got in this conversation to tell him that Hannah is okay, and I'm happy he got to tell June he should have tried harder to find her and Hannah. And I felt like he was talking to me. I needed to hear that. I don't accept his apology, but I was happy that the character himself actually admitted he's just been sitting around. So June drops this bomb that she wants Luke to meet with the Waterfords. It was really smart on Luke and quick thinking to have Mr. Waterford not join and to say yes to Serena, because he's still got to do what his wife asks him, because he knows she's in a dire situation. So he's got to be smart there, but he knows clearly, no matter what, as the man in his position, if he saw Mr. Waterford, he probably would have snapped his neck. So we get Miss Lawrence now, and June starting to bond a bit, and June talks about holding on to a sliver of someone that's actually good. And this is one of June's coping mechanisms you see she's used with so many relationships in Gilead. And obviously, big picture with Luke, and saying, especially if it's all you have, I mean, all she's got is memories of Luke at this point. But we learn Miss Lawrence, this relates to her because she misses the man who made these cassette tapes in Commander Lawrence. And June says, I know there's good in him. He helped Emily, he helped me. So this again explains Commander Lawrence a little better now. We already knew this, but it just confirmed it that yes, there's good in there. It's got to kind of be pulled out, and to focus on that, she says to the wife, and this is smart for June because having Miss Lawrence get along with Commander Lawrence is only going to help in the long run to calm him down and give him some sensibility. And then it got her access to these cassettes and a brilliant idea to record herself giving Luke a very important message, which we'll get to. I love that when Serena Joy gets to Canada, she is greeted by Mr. Tuella, aka Mr. Do some treason and go to Hawaii and forget all of this. Serena Joy's escape plan. And I love her reaction to it. Like, she doesn't even want to see it. It's like that would be her key to sanity, and she can't even touch it. And it was surreal seeing Serena dressed like a normal woman now again and be herself in a way with the hair down. And it makes you so mad at her because you see this and then maybe you think something good will come out of this. She'll gain more sense. But no, it's just reminding you what she could have gone back to, but instead now she's just going full psychopath Serena coming up. In difficulty level of acting, a scene like this with Luke and Serena is really tough because these actors have no experience acting together in this show. The characters in the script don't know each other, so you're playing it totally based off meeting a stranger, and they nail it perfectly, and they let a lot of beats breathe here. It's very realistic. The best line Luke has ever said in this show, and I believe this scene was key to making him more likable, is when he responded to Serena Joy saying, every child has a right to their own story, and he says, what is your husband's role in that story? It's an answer you cannot answer because it's so true and right, and it's totally just. And he follows it by, I don't know what you tell yourself to fall asleep at night. And she says, I tell myself that she was a miracle and that I let her go. I want a better life for her, and so did your wife. And this is really interesting for Serena Joy's character because it's like this temptation she's feeling to just get her kid back and not do the rational thing and following all her emotion, because she knows deep down the real thing she should do is say hi and leave and stick to the plan, but no. And I think what really triggered her in this scene was when Luke said to her, you're never going to be anything to her. This just made her angry, and it's just a fear she has that could happen, that if she just lets her stay in Canada, maybe she will disconnect and have no connection. And man, when Luke let her hold her, that must have been brutal for Luke just to see and watch, and such a twist of his mind. And I believe here when she just held Nichole, that was it. It's over now. I knew right then, okay, here comes the Serena Joy we know and love. She got her taste of her drug. And you see this because then Mr. Hawaii's like, look, you can go to Coconuts now. Stay in your outfit. Don't put that stuff back on. And she's like, I only have one home. I hope you understand that. And this is just the Serena we know. She won't budge. She is who she is. She's stubborn. Again, she's like Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. She puts her child over anything, and it's not even really her child, which is the crazy part of all this. It's so obsessive to the point where there's no rational thinking here. And I feel like Serena's just played denial card in her head in the way of she can't even go to the thinking that Luke was suggesting about Commander Waterford and really clearly him being a rapist and her being culpable to it, but she just can't think that. Because I think if she does, I do believe she'll be too guilty. And if you looked at that scene of her in the ocean in episode 3 that she was thinking of killing herself, that is there. But she thinks if she thinks that way, that tragedy will happen of her own self. And she's like, well, you know what? I'm just not going to believe that and go full the other way. I almost embrace the monster. Like, there's no way for her character type to just stay in the middle. She's of extremes. So we see Mrs. Lawrence gets to play the cassette tape with Commander Lawrence. So that's a good sign for June as she smiles. Because, again, this is a key to just easing up Commander Lawrence and getting out his good side through his wife. And even if Serena had a little slither left of just letting things be, which I still think she did, she got off that plane and she said to Fred, she was perfect and now it's over. Obviously, she's crushed about it, but Fred says the line he knew he had to say and that she would jump to his side in a second where he said, it doesn't have to be over. Man, and that's when you knew, okay, June just got completely screwed and the rug just pulled from underneath her. And it's so ironic watching Serena Joy's story play out because she cannot handle even for a couple weeks not being with her kid. Can you imagine if she was in June's situation from the beginning of this show, losing her kid? And this is what June alluded to her in episode 1 this season. So it's so much hypocrisy, it's insane. So we see off Matthew, another character that's hard to read, actually apologizes to June in the grocery store for snapping at her before. But again, I still read some resentment there about all the attention her baby's getting. And then off Matthew's just, again, suffering and having a third one. Is she suffering from Stockholm Syndrome to the extreme as well? What does she really think is going on off Matthew in her head? Again, this is a strong character they are building, and I like how they're slowly building her, which I think can result in only a very well-developed character down the road that we really grow to know. But I love we got that handmaid tension I've kind of missed this season that I know and love, and that's when the music's pumping and the guy comes in to take June. You're like, what is going on? And you see they give June like this nicer handmaid's outfit to make it look not as bad of a situation on TV for the Waterfords. And it also can hint to them using her obviously in ways to promote her and make her like this head handmaid, again, to just save face and actually use June for their benefit. And this was just insane with the TV set she's on. I mean, you can't feel more betrayed than June does in that moment. And Commander Waterford's like, we make a request to the Canadian government in peace. They want Nichole back. And I love the drop of Waterford's voice here. That almost made it sound satanic in June's head. Now, before I get to my thoughts on that, I just want to mention too, obviously, Luke here listening to the cassette tape from June. And like I talked about before, she lets out some guilt she's had and shame for obviously having feelings for Nick, having this child with Nick and Luke not knowing this. But it was good she told him again. It eases his mind that it's not as bad as her having this baby with Commander Waterford. And I love the line where she says it was a baby out of love. Tells Luke that the baby's really named Holly. And again, going to, I said before, that she's always going to love Luke, but she's kind of given him the key now to focus on your life too and find love, be happy. Don't just focus on me because this is reality. I'm here and I've had to move on in parts too. And I love the line where she's like, I'm not the woman you remember. She is part of me, but I am doing what I need to survive. And you should too. And do it for Hannah. This is all for her. Really beautiful stuff. And it's a really big payoff to Luke and June's marriage, in my opinion, and how it's been affected by Gilead. It's good to get those kind of stories that I'm going since season 1, getting some closure on the table here. So hopefully we can see Commander Waterford throw Luke over a bridge next episode now that he got his shining moment. Now, just in regards to the end of this episode, you can look at this a couple ways. The maybe frustrating way I could see a lot of people being pissed off about is that we are back to where we started at the beginning of this season. And Serena Joy is back to being Serena Joy again. So if you look at it, this season was a giant circle the first 5 episodes just to get back to the same situation we started with because Serena's changed her mind now. From sending the baby off and now going to get it, which can just feel kind of like, are you wasting our time now? However, I do like this twist. I'm not one of those people who also believes character arcs are so simple and that, oh, once someone's gone this way, they have to stay that way and go that way fully, where people complain that with Game of Thrones, especially with Daenerys. And I don't agree with that. I think it makes sense for characters to go back and forth as long as it's believable, and it's still believable to me with Serena Joy and how she behaved. I just don't know how making the decision as a story is the best move for the show and getting away from feeling repetitive. But I still think it will have its rewards. I still really liked that scene with the TV set. I like that it connects really well this main plot to the Canadian plot and is going to put now Luke and Moira in the spotlight. And we can get a little kind of battle going on here. There's no more redemption for Serena at this point. She is dead to me, but I could again see these frustrations that I feel like are going to come from this episode where we just had this happen last season with Serena where we thought she was going good and then she goes back and then she did again. But at least this time I think it's leading to an interesting story with Canada. We shall see. Again, my biggest complaint about this season is the inconsistencies. I still felt that with Commander Waterford. The show's always made these characters feel believable, but this season I feel like they just did a lot of cheats. But this episode as a whole, I enjoyed it. I still think the core of the show and the most enjoyable scenes go back to the beginning of this show with just the conflict between June and the Waterfords. I still don't think anything's touched that, and I think when they're together, those three, forget it. I think it's the most entertaining TV the show makes. I think the writing was really solid in this episode, and I'm going to really give credit to Serena Joy and Luke here. Their acting was really, really well done, and they did well together on screen for not having been on the screen together yet in the show, unless you count the little side glances when they first visited Canada. Otherwise, this was the big one. So I'm going to give this episode a 9. Let me know what you thought of it down below. Also, let me know any theories you have for what's upcoming. I'd love to hear it. I read every comment and try to respond as many as I can. Please subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of The Handmaid's Tale. And please make sure to check out my Big Little Lies reviews I'm doing as well. Follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. And I'll see you next time.